You are not black. You are not African American. You are not a white. Any of those terms, though they are recognized within the United States system. Should should I back up? Should we talk about should we and go from here? All right, guys. So it is your main man, the Black Wolf, the Bad Wolf, the international man of mystery, the crazy guy, the man in the little box, the Bad Wolf. Show my motto. Now, with that being said, what is this video really about? Well, it's just clickbait, sir. I just wanted you to click on this video. I really don't have anything in mind. Come on now, you guys know me better than that. I always got something to say. So, as a national state citizen, you do not have a color designation. Founding fathers, for the most part, allegedly, did not care about your color. And for those people who didn't know, Barack Obama was not the first president of our country. He's the first president of our corporation operating as a country. I actually have a book, it's over here somewhere, where it talks about how there were other people who were in control of our country of color way before even George Washington, but we'll leave that alone for now. So if the founding fathers didn't care about our color, and color, calling somebody out by a color gives you a definition, a description, and if somebody owns that description by means of a definition, that means they own you. You've been classified. You've been reduced from just being a person to a person who is a black, a white, an African American, a whatever. Well, you have to ask yourself, if somebody can name something and then you respond to it, then they have some form of control over you. It's no different than if a police officer says, well, and this applies if you're a licensed driver, because they control and own licensed drivers. Because a licensed driver is a member of their community called the public, and they administer over the public. The streets are used for public and private means. So there are people out there using them for private things, but generally those private people are not using it for commerce. If they were, legally they would be wrong. Even though you're in your car and you're not technically doing anything commercial, the license you have is commercial based. That's why you can use Uber, DoorDash, or whatever else. So though you have misappropriately obtained a license, it gives you the ability to suddenly do commercial things. But that means the whole license is tainted with commerce. Police regulate commerce. These law enforcement out here regulate commerce, public things. And if you do private things and you make it a public controversy, that's when they can get involved. And they are charged with protecting the peace and safety of the public. Now, that being said, when a police officer pulls you over, his understanding, which is very limited but general, is that your vehicle is a motor vehicle. The term motor vehicle means a propelled device that is used for commercial activities in traffic. Commercial. They regulate that. Some people would argue that their vehicle is a private conveyance, which I wouldn't be arguing mine is because mine is not registered to them whatsoever. It's recorded that my government, sanctioned by the federal government, is its own thing. I have the absolute right and ability within my liberties to utilize my vehicle through my entity privately as long as everything is done correctly. We've already won court cases on this. So, officers who watch this, it doesn't matter what you feel, you don't have the ultimate right to impede on another person's private interstate activities and travel unless they do something to endanger public safety. That being said, it doesn't mean that some of them don't operate in a mentality that they think is correct, though they're wrong, but they're also not taught the full extent of the law and how the superior law, which is the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence, work. If someone's operating in that jurisdiction, the police have no jurisdiction unless you make the event a public controversy. So, which is why you sue them, whether in their public or private capacity, and you go from there. But anyway, the point of this is to establish that if somebody can name something, or you take something that was private, like your vehicle, and you register it, it is no longer private. It is public to be administered by public things. So they did the same thing with us. Your birth documents from the hospital or home or whatever else were private. When you sent that off to the state to be citizenized, it's my new word, don't take it, or brought in as a resident, you became a member of the public. So now they can construe your name and anything under your name or in your name as being part of the public. Part of being in the public means that you are a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, so regulated by the state and the federal government. Whereas when you're in your private capacity, you are their boss all across the board. However, because it says, we the people are governed by our consent. So if I give you permission to control me, you only get to control me as long as I am in an agreement. The moment I'm not, I go back to being your boss. That's a private citizen. That's a national. 14th Amendment U.S. citizen came along later on. Hell, it's in the 14th Amendment. You don't think they would have addressed this long before then? They did. And the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and Declaration of Independence, it's already in there as primary. So the 14th Amendment, when it came along later on, these people were like, we want to create our own class, a lower class of individual known as a citizen, not a national and not a state citizen. And we're not going to call them 14th Amendment citizens because that just sounds a little dirty and derogatory. We want them to think that it's the same as everything else out there. So we're just going to call them a citizen or a U.S. citizen. Just like in Brazil, when you're in Brazil, you don't call it a Brazil nut. It's just a nut. That being the story and the case, when you see the term black or white or African American or German American, these are words that the corporation, the entity, these people came up with to classify you as a national being converted, citizenized, stripping away your nationality and all of that, Floridian, New Yorker, Wisconsinite, Californian, Illinoisan, so on and so forth. We're stripping away all of your birthright and we're giving you something now man-made. And we're going to classify them. Now, why do they do that? We don't exactly know. But could that play a part in certain benefits you receive, certain treatment? Absolutely. We don't know. And here's the bigger picture, too. If they're going to classify you as a black, what is the definition of a black? Have you seen it listed on any of their documents that you've signed where you said you were a black? How about a white? What is the definition of a white? Because truly, most of white people are peach, and most black people are actually brown. But I didn't seen some black folks that is black as midnight. Let me tell you. And I didn't seen some white folks that is whiter than white. So it does apply. But generally, You don't know the definition of it. So if they're creating a term and you don't know the definition of it, why are you accepting it? Because if you want their benefits and privileges to see where you what you qualify for, and they want to class you into something, you may get more, you may get less because you put down you're a black or they're a white or a this or that. So you're accepting a term that doesn't actually apply to you. You're accepting a definition that you've never seen. They may say, oh, an African American is somebody who's got ancestral roots from these parts of Africa. How do you know 100% that's where all of your people came from? And even if that's the case, cool. Our ancestral roots did come from there. A lot of people of color came right from here. We were already here or here for a very long time. Let's move on to the next problem. When you fill out some of these applications, they ask you, what is your citizenship? You're looking at it as well. Wolf, it doesn't say anything about what is my nationality, though some government agencies are now due to the fact that they're committing legal and lawful obfuscation of one's rights by reverse verdict, meaning if you choose no, you're not a U.S. citizen, it fools people into saying, well, if I choose no, I'm not a citizen, then I'm not going to get the benefit or the whatever else I'm trying to get to. And that's a fear tactic. It's obfuscation of material. So some agencies, probably due to watching my videos, are now changing that because that is a lawsuit. The law basically states that anything that is done has to be to the level of understanding for the average person. The average person is not going to know that if they get an application to check no to U.S. citizenship, like on the passport, which then automatically by default places them as a national. The average person is not that smart. Hell, I got an IQ of over 160 to 171, and it took me some time to realize that too. Average person's gonna say, well, then I'm not gonna get the benefits because they're probably not gonna let me, it's not gonna pass. But that's in fact what they're doing. So with the passport, people say, well, how can that be? But then you look on it and it shows you there's two options on the main page in the oath section. They're telling you have the option of being regarded as a U.S. citizen or a non-citizen national or a non-citizen U.S. national. A lot of people say, but that doesn't say just national because that's their terminology for a national. They've obfuscated the word because they've expanded the fact that there's now multiple types of national. They really should have just said national of the United States, but they had to create a whole class because there's now a secondary class of national who are located in Samoa and what is it? It's not Guam, Samoa, and I'd have to look it up. Can't think of it. It's not Guam. Anyway, so there's a second class of national, which we've already proven beyond a shadow of a doubt in the codes. Living, I already made the video, so I know I'm accurate, 100%. So when you look at some of these applications, some things you have to admit to being a U.S. citizen because it is for U.S. citizens. Police officer, certain other public officials and trustees, public office. You have to be a public official. You have to be a public trustee. You have to say, how can you do that? Because under 8 U.S.C. 1401, it states that you are a national and a citizen at birth. National is your private standing. Real men, put some bass in your voice, boy. Stand on land. Your status, which is usually of a non-living thing, is that of a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen. The national is your birthright. The citizenship is a man-made thing in a separate jurisdiction. You have both. So on some applications, you absolutely have to check off U.S. citizen. But generally, for your work or whatever else, because you're not that U.S. citizen at the time, unless you're a cop or etc. If you look at where it says U.S. citizenship, what is your citizenship? What they're also saying is that if you look all the way to the end, it says other, because the law states that there has to be a remedy there. They cannot take it away from you. So if they're saying citizen, foreigner, and then whatever LPN or whatever, or LPR, and then other. The reason why other is there is that is your remedy to declare Floridian, New Yorker, national, state citizen, North Carolinian. That's what that is for. Does it really matter? Generally, no. But you should be aware of it. You should know what's going on when you see these things. If I had a regular job, and I don't, because this is what I do now, so thank you to all of you guys who support me to do this full time, I would definitely be checking off on the citizenship line on most things Floridian, New Yorker, Michigander, Minnesotan, Nebraskan. HR may look at you a little funny. Well, you put it Nebraskan. That's not a thing. Oh, I'm glad you asked. See, under GPO style manual, Nebraskan actually has legal recognition. It's been codified. So here, it's a real thing. Another term for it is national. If you don't believe me, you can look up under 8 U.S.C. 1401 or 8 U.S.C. 1101A 22B. It's a thing. And I get to choose between the two, and they're not the same. How do we know that? 8 FAM 301.1-1, letter B. Nationality and citizenship in the United States of America is not the same thing. Separate, but you have both. Ta-da. So when I was talking to an individual, a private individual of the private fraternity, because I get calls like that every once in a while. Back in the day, he informed me, it's like, Mr. Lovett, why are you referring to yourself as an African American? Can you show me on a map where Africa and America meet and you were born there? And I, though I have African and Native American in my family, and some white, and some British, and whatever else, hence light skin. Um, I was like, well, I have some, but I mean, yeah, but that's because the system wants to classify you. And if you accept the name, if you accept the name or classification of what they want to call you, it also tells me that you don't know your private side and who you really are and what you really are. But by accepting that, which seems harmless, they get to put you into a box and treat you a certain way, which is less than what you deserved. You're ignoring your birthright and you're going for their man made boxes. They're pulling you out of the forest, enslaving you into your little city side box and civilized life, so they say, where they're able to give you and take away things from you. You're no longer a tribal leader or a savage on the land. Ooh, savage sounds so scary. Savage means you're of your own free will and accord. You move how you see fit. Oh, doesn't mean savages don't have laws and rules. It just means those rules are not the same as the civil, so-called civil rules, where they operate and try to appear civil, but behind closed doors, they give millions of dollars to leering centers and they allegedly traffic uh, uh, little people and small persons. And they do domestic, you know, violence and things to their significant others while wearing suits and ties and looking nice and smiling. Let's do a deal. You go to the bank. Oh, you're an African American. Well, we're sorry, we can't do a deal with you. Your credit's not strong enough. You need more assets. You don't have enough liquid. Been there, done that. So when he asked the question, it made sense. None of us, most of us, were not born anywhere but America. And where are Native Americans born? Right here. So you're telling me that you have to be born on a reservation around other Native Americans to be called a Native American? I'm sorry, but no, that's not how it works. They do have most of them have or should have a longer ancestral lineage in being here. But the very moment any of us, all of us were born here, since it was called America, anybody born in this land is an American, which makes you a Native American. Native Americans don't have last names. Native Americans have tribes, houses, nations. Your first name or your first and middle name together is your name. That is it as a private national Native American. What is referred to as the last name or your servant name, which you should be serving nobody but God, but hey, whatever God you believe in, may they have mercy on your soul. That last name, allegedly, or on the public legal side, your first and last name is your legal person. It's an entity. It's a business trust that they gave you to do business on the public side. Your last alleged name is your house, your temple, your tribe, your nation. James Charles Cash Money of the Lovett Nation or of the tribe of Lovett or the Lovett tribe. That's you on the private side. That name also legally differentiates you from the version of just James Lovett or potentially just James C. Lovett, which could be construed as a legal person because it's an all capitalized lettering, which is a tradition and a custom, a legality of the UCC and the states, the corporate states, the state of Florida. They use that, not Florida State and not the federal government who operates on America's behalf. They're in a different jurisdiction. That jurisdiction is the Constitution. The states are allowed because they're doing business for profit, and they are a business. They're allowed to do their own little customs and things. Those are their customs. The all capitalized name is a legal person. It's a business. So and there's nothing wrong with it as long as you know what it is and how to use it. So anybody accepting that they're a white or a black, an African American, a Polish American, or whatever else, you may have that as your ancestry. Your ancestral people DNA came from there. And some of you guys can actually go back there and claim citizenship. But not all of us. Africa don't really play that. They're like, nah, nah. Take your native. It's funny because in talking to some people from there, they refer to us black people as nationals or natives, but here they don't even really look at us as U.S. citizens. And they're like, look, your people came from here. That was a long time ago, but whoop-de-doo. You ain't here now. You weren't born here. You were born over there, Americano. So in fact, we are all nationals, no matter what age, creed, orientation, whatever, male, female. If you were born here, your baby butt hit this air on this land, you're a Native American. So, but is it okay to be that black or that African American or the whatever else? Yes, depending on what job. If it requires that, then that's who you are. You have the legal right to be that being, that legal person, to regard yourself as that. Now, one more thing. I did some consultations today, and people were like, "Oh, I got to do all these processes." They're combining some of the things I talked about, some of the things other people talked about. And let me reiterate this, guys. You do not have to do any process to be a national. It is your birthright. You are already the it. If you feel so moved that you want to do that particular process and make sure that it's a safe process, then do it. But it is not required for you to be a national. You already are. That's it. I hope you guys take care. And just remember, you are not that color. You are not that entity. You are not that legal person. You are a private citizen, which is a national of the United States. You are a Native American. You are a lowercase g God. You are a creator. You already are the creditor. With this knowledge, you are made free. You can check me out on blacksite32.com, jamesclovett.com, and my most infamous growing channel on YouTube, Badwolf Unrestricted. I'll talk to you guys later.